Welcome back to the Nerdrotic channel, everyone. My name is Gary Beekler. I am live in San Francisco, California, and tonight we are covering episode 5 of Castle Rock of its first season. So far, it has been kind of a slow burn. This episode's name was Harvest, and I thought this was probably one of the better episodes of the season. Stuff started moving at this point, and it's starting to feel like a Stephen King story. Um, before that, it took me a while to get used to this show. And like I said before, it was a slow burn. But tonight's episode, let's start breaking this one down. And again, we are now going to be doing the recaps right after, or somewhat after it airs. I got delayed from some technical difficulties of a previous video, but we're going to start doing these on Tuesday night, my time here on the West Coast. It comes out at 9 p.m. Pacific time on Hulu. So we get a little bit of an early start on it, and that's where it's going to be for the rest of the series. So we start out with it kind of confused me here. So we have Henry Deaver in a hospital, and he's getting a CAT scan, and I'm assuming I'm assuming it's from the events from last episode where Dennis had because he fist bumped the kid, had gone crazy, shot up all his coworkers, and said he wanted to testify before he was shot himself. And a gunshot and a flash bomb went off right near Henry Deaver's head. So I thought he was in the hospital for that, but it turns out it was a flashback. And he's getting a CAT scan. He has a little test where he has to answer back some random words, not in any particular order, as long as he answers them back. And we find out it's from like a ringing in his ear. They thought they even mentioned it might be tinnitus. And he just, I guess he was just visiting a hospital in Texas at the time. So that kind of confused me a little bit, but it also wanted to give us some context that like Henry Deaver has been dealing with something his entire life, and it may be a connection to the kid played by Skarsgård. So we get to now, and we're starting to see that in Castle Rock, all hell's starting to break loose. There's some wildfires going off in the distance on Black Mountain, and there's already been like a couple of deaths from it. So Henry gets called to the church. And he thinks it's about his dad's plot, because he had moved his dad's casket from the landfill it was in. And he gets called in by somebody who works at the church, or the pastor, I'm not sure which. And his casket's leaking, which is disgusting. And I guess this is exploding casket. And if it's sealed too much, I had never heard of this, it cooks the body. But the thing is, like, that body's been in there for decades, and he thought it was kind of weird that was happening, but it was pretty gross. So that's why he got called in. It was terrible. It was terrible. Then we get a flash of Teresa, the warden, getting her ass chewed out by the company, and basically listening to a voicemail saying, I don't care what you do at this point. The board is not involved. We knew nothing. There is room under the bus for one more person if necessary. So just make this all go away. And making it all go away is releasing the kid, which is probably a really, really bad idea. So we go to back to Henry's mom's house, Ruth Deaver's house, and him and Pangborn are putting up some cameras. So I guess they came to a compromise to where I was like, listen, I won't take her to Texas, but I at least got to keep an eye on her, and we can do it through an app. So we set up a security system, which I'm sure is a great setup for something much creepier later. I mean, it plays into it a little bit later in the episode, but I see great potential for creepiness here. Henry gets a call, and he finds out that the kid is being released at this point. So we get a shot of the kid, and that's what they're calling him on IMDb. So that's what I'm going to call him from here, Skarsgård's character. And he's watching a little video for inmates when they get released, talking about, well, it might come up during a job interview or searching for an apartment. It's time for you to reframe the narrative. Yeah, I've never seen videos for stuff like that. That's interesting. So he gets out, and Henry, simply just asks him his name, and we haven't gotten the name of the kid yet. And we get some ominous music, and then we get the credits, of course. When we come back from the credits, Warden Lacey, we get a flashback of Warden Lacey talking to the kid in the cage while he's eating. Uh, I guess doing a Bible verse on the building Noah's Ark, what type of wood it was or whatever. And, just telling the story. And it looks like it's towards the end of his time keeping that kid down there. And he says, basically, I built my ark. I built my cage. For 6 nights in a row, a voice came to me and told me where you would be, exactly you would be. And when I found you, you were so small compared to my faith. It was really a creepy line. You were so small, but my faith was strong. And I never questioned it. But he said, but now I'm old. And I'm starting to wonder if I did the right thing or not, And you see him Warden Lacey take off his glove, and he touches the kid and touches his face. Maybe that was right before he decided to kill himself. So after they get the kid out, they take him to test, take a psych test, basically. And he takes the same test that Henry took in the beginning of the episode. Henry thought he could probably dump him off at this place, and they're like, listen, we're not, we're not an inpatient facility. We're an outpatient facility, but maybe we can find you something on Monday. And he's like, what am I supposed to do till then? So obviously he's going to stay with Henry. Molly hooks him up with a pad, which was awfully nice. A nice little artist's loft, it looked like. Henry basically says, don't leave. Nobody knows you're out yet. Be a couple days, no problem. And we'll come back and get you. And then Henry feels real bad that he's kind of sticking in with Molly. And she's like, listen, I had a place. It's all good. We're cool. And Henry mentions again, they're like, I can't wait to get out of this town, famous last words. Right. Then we see, the Pangborn is with, we see, him back at Ruth's house, and it's night, and she's suffering what looks like one of her dementia spells, and she's looking out, and she sees him come home. She's like, where were you? And she's like, you got to go back out there. He could be catching a fever. And she's talking about Henry, or he thinks she's talking about Henry being out there again. And then she just looks at him and goes, something terrible is going to happen, which is great for a trailer, but then nothing really happens. So the kid who was staying at the artist loft decides to leave at some point, and he walks around the neighborhood, and he walks up to a house where a family is having a birthday. And he walks right in the house and is staring at him, cutting the cake. And of course, they focus on a knife. And then all of a sudden, after the family singing happy birthday, and then the next thing you know, the mom and dad are fighting, and it's like all of a sudden you hear, well, yeah, I just want to kill you. How about tonight? Tonight's the night. And then we hear a bunch of screaming. And if you're watching this on closed caption, which is hilarious, the kid leaves, and you see in parentheses, stab, stab, stab. So, and you hear a baby crying, and it's pretty horrific. And the kid ends up climbing to the roof of the house and just listening, kind of doing his best Batman impression there. Yeah, that was pretty disturbing. So we don't know if the whole family, killed each other. We know the baby was crying. We know there was another younger kid. But yeah, there was a lot of stab going on there. The next day, we're with Pangborn, and over the radio, you hear that the fires are getting out of control, and they can't put out the fires under normal methods. And it's already killed like 5 firefighters. And we're with Pangborn at Ruth's house again, and he looks down at a chess set and gets a little flashback of when he first gave Ruth the chess set. And it's it's a replica of an old Viking one that was, I guess, carved out of ivory at some point. And he just, they're showing their relationship and how much he actually does love her, but it also plays into something later that's very tragic with Pangborn. And And then after she gets the chess set, she thanks him, and she's all, yeah, I also heard that chess is good for people with dementia. Yeah, which is, so we knew that it was happening at that time. We don't know how far the flashback was. They are getting kind of weird with the flashbacks because we don't know like how far back we're going. It doesn't say like 2 days ago or 2 years ago. We're assuming it's recently. They're having a lot of faith in us with that, and sometimes with flashbacks it gets tricky. You can't just throw them in there. That kind of confused me, that little scene, but I'm easily confused. What the hell? Um, so we see that Pangborn is getting a bridge dedicated to him, and it's during the fire. So it's actually, it looked a lot like it looked up here today at work. We have a bunch of wildfires near my work, and it was like orange outside. So that looked very familiar. So he's going out to do a speech, and he takes Ruth with him to go get this dedication. And Henry wasn't going to go, but he was forced to go. And Henry starts getting, while he's giving the speech, Henry starts getting this ringing in his ears. And then a dog starts barking at Ruth, and she freaks out. And then we pan into Henry while he's giving the speech, and then he looks up and sees that she's gone. And she's sitting on a bridge or standing on a bridge, and she jumps off, and then Henry goes and jumps off after her. And this is all while the dog's barking and everything's going crazy. And it's like, damn. So while we see our young what was her name, Jackie, we see Jackie, she arrives, we see her get home, and she hears something upstairs, and she goes up and investigates, and she sees that somebody's living in the loft upstairs. And I don't know if this is where she lives or not. We really couldn't tell. Maybe it was. And she's being nosy. She finds a knife under the bed, and she lays down on the bed, and then we see a naked kid kind of come in the room, but she doesn't see him, and then it cuts away. Which is very bad. So Pangborn and Henry are at the hospital, and Ruth has survived. And Pangborn is blaming himself. He's like, listen, in the mornings she's usually better. So when Ruth wakes up, they finally go in there, and she just said, it was that goddamn dog. Nothing stays dead in this town. And that they are completely disturbed by that. But before that, there's a little conversation that Pangborn has with Henry, and he tells them kind of their relationship. Like, they had that affair, but he realized it wasn't going to happen. So he went down south, because he had actually, offered to marry her, offered her a ring, and Ruth said no. It would confuse Henry when he was young. So he decided to bail and went down south. But then years later, he came back. And that's the tragedy, is when he came back, like, she wasn't entirely there, and he ended up getting called, to her house when he moved back. And they, he wasn't a sheriff, but they called him back because they heard gunshots, and he had seen her, and she looked like hell. She had a gun in her hand, and she begged him not to leave. And that's pretty much where he was at right now. And that's what he's been doing ever since. He's been basically a caretaker. Excuse me. But I love that there's a nice little Cujo callback. There's multiple callbacks. Like, we've had like 4 Cujo callbacks so far. We've also had the Strangler callbacks from the Dead Zone. There was tons of stuff laid in it. It's not getting annoying yet. It doesn't really bother me. I like, I've read Stephen King up to it, and I really haven't read much post that. So, and they seem to be playing in that sandbox, the early Stephen King sandbox, which is cool. I'm down with that. Molly, goes to find the kid, and he's gone. And she sees some soap shavings on the ground. She doesn't know what it is, and she takes off, but we see that the kid had carved himself pretty well, actually, and in her little town miniature that she had. So we see Jackie and the kid, they had taken off in a car, and she's getting stoned and talking about the 80s and how great the 80s were. And she's a writer, and it's always kids who think the 80s were so great. The 80s were okay. Now is always better. Just want to say that. So yeah, they're just sitting there talking and getting stoned. And then eventually the kid takes off on her and ends up standing on the roof. And she doesn't know what the hell's going, calls Molly out. Molly finds her and she walks up there, and when she gets close to the kid, she starts hearing everything that he's hearing. And he's hearing everything that he had just gone through. He can hear the firefighters, he can hear the family dying again, and she's all getting echoes of that. So it's yeah, I'm wondering if she's like an empath, like how she's able to even stand that at that point. But she ends up talking him off and takes him back to Henry's house. And Henry's going to have him stay there. So what does Henry do? Henry takes him to an even creepier part of his house, like a little guest house, and um, and just it says, yeah, my dad used to play in here, and it's like, again, it's the creepiest house you could have possibly taken him, and a creepier part of the property. He starts playing the piano, and he's like, I remember this, and he's playing the piano really well, and Henry's all, well, that's something. And Henry is like a non-believer, doesn't think anything weird's going on, and just thinks it's it's a shitty town. I got to get out of here. I got to take care of this kid and leave. He senses like no real danger, even though he's like been through some crazy shit. Can't remember parts of his life, and that even his mom brings it up in the hotel room. It's like, yeah, I you know how it feels. You know how it's like to be missing parts of your story. Sissy Spacek said in the hospital, she's like, it's like I'm looking at a photo album and somebody's like taken all the pictures out or moved them all around on me. So yeah, he plays the piano. Henry tucks him in basically and takes off. Then we get back to Pangborn. And this is where the meaty part of the episode happens, which is at the end, of course. And Pangborn is out getting drunk on his bridge and takes his plaque off and tosses it. But then he gets a security alert on his phone, and he sees the kid walking on Ruth's property. So he rushes over there, and they meet in the woods, in the foggy woods. It's properly creepy. And we get another flashback, and Pangborn, and we finally get some information too. Pangborn's like, I know who you are. I forgot my dead wife's face, but I'll never forget yours. And he tells the story how he pulled over Warden Lacey, and there was a boy in the car, and Warden Lacey told him the story, told him to trust him. Basically, he said he had the devil in a trunk, and Pangborn says, with all the crazy shit that's happened in this town, the devil being in somebody's trunk is pretty believable, So, and he's even second guessing himself. He's like, I can't believe I let him take off with you in the car. But then we find out that the kid hasn't aged a day in 30 years. He still looks the same. So he wasn't that young. He was still, his whatever in his 20s or something. But yeah, hadn't aged a day. So there is something definitely weird going on here. He asks him directly if he's the devil. He said no. And then he starts monologuing a little bit. He's like, all this crap I've done for you, and or not for you, but I waited 30 years to find out the answer. This crap happened. I went out of town. I finally get back with the woman I love, and she's slipping through my fingers, and he points a gun at him. And then the kid goes, you really don't know what's going on here, do you? Which is pretty much a question for the audience that we would all say yes. Yeah, we have no idea what's going on. A little bit. And that's where the episode ends. He also mentioned prior to that he could, the kid mentioned he could help Ruth with her memory or with something. He didn't say specifically what he could help with. So, we end it with Pangborn holding a gun to him, and that's where the episode ends. I thought it was a pretty good episode. The show is getting interesting. I'm curious to see how you feel. It's nowhere the best show on TV, but it's decent for a summer release. It's all right. If you're a Stephen King fan, I bet you're probably like, if you're a huge Stephen King fan, I don't just getting references probably wouldn't be enough. If you want to really play in the sandbox, then play. Jackie does mention, and when she's in the car with the kid getting stoned, she mentions that she gets her name, or she mentions the Shining, and she gets her name from the hotel or the family. So that was, yeah, she's all, there was another writer from this town who killed his whole family in a ski lodge in Colorado. How's it going, everybody in the chat? Sheriff Pangborn has been in a lot of books. Because poor Sheriff Bannerman got killed by Cujo. That was the sheriff I knew when I was young, until Cujo came out, of course. Tinnitus. Did I say tendonitis? It's tinnitus. Yeah, ringing in the ear. I probably said tendonitis. I meant to say tinnitus. The guy, he said, Revelation 19, he has a name written on him, which no one knows except himself. He was clothed in a robe dripped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. Yep. So yeah, I was thinking he's like maybe kind of a representation of the four horsemen, or one of the four horsemen. He carved himself in white soap. Remember the can. Yeah, hit that like button. Hit that like button. So all you damn night owls, how are you doing tonight? Hi, random game user. How you doing? Basically, this is a recorded video with a live audience, which is nice. I'm reading down the chat here. There's a lot of talk of accents. There we go. So how are you guys liking the show? Are you even watching the show? How are you, who is watching this as a video, liking the show? I think it's okay. I think it's I don't know if it's must see TV at all. I think if this was being released in the fall with a lot of competition, it would probably get forgotten, fall between the cracks. But it doesn't have a ton of competition right now. It's on Hulu. It's got a brilliant cast. I mean, that really helps it a lot. I'm starting to like Henry Deaver a lot more. At first, I was kind of with Dennis on that one, but Andre Holland's like doing a really good job playing that Stephen King kind of everyman. It's starting to get a little bit of a Twilight Zone feel. I loved in last episode they in Ruth's house in her TV they showed The Howling Man, which is brilliant and and kind of an obvious Twilight Zone callback for this show. And yeah, it's decent. Like last week's episode ended crazy. That was nuts. So if we're gonna get more of that, I'm okay with the slow build as long as there's a pretty good payoff at the end. I don't know if this is gonna remain kind of a closed in, quiet show. It's written as far as like it's taking place in the town and the world building's been kind of slow. But if it starts going bonkers at the end with all kinds of like shit goes completely sideways and we get more than one thing that's bad, that would be interesting. I think that would be fun. But it seems like it's kind of muted, and that might be just part of the storytelling they're doing now. And that's fine. We got to see what the payoff, but I'm definitely in for the long haul on this one. I have no problem sticking through this, and I'm curious. Like I said, though, it's not the best show on TV, but I've seen so much worse. Seems like I'll probably pass, says Bezopolis. What's up? Oh, the Bezopolis. I'll be honest, never watched Castle Rock. I just watch your reviews. That's all. That's awesome. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I finally gave it a watch. I agree. It's a good summer release. I admit to judging it upon the release, but I'm glad I gave it a chance because I'm intrigued so far, says Darth Jarvis. Yeah, me too. It's had some weak episodes, but if it's a slow burn, like I said before, and like shit really goes down at the end, that'll be fun. That'll be a lot of fun. The horseman named Faithful and True, and he's here, or he's there for judgment and war, and that's him he's talking about. I like it so far. Yeah, it's decent. It's decent. Random's like, I'm good. I'm just listening. You are good, Random. Yeah, we're gonna probably wrap this one up, and we will see how it goes. We will see how the show goes. Yeah. Sorry for the folks who are watching it later, but the show actually premieres 9 p.m. my time, and it's better for me to do it tonight because Wednesdays are getting tricky. Plus, we're doing a Patreon only live stream for Wednesday, which we have not done yet. So we need to do that for our wonderful patrons. What I mean by muted, I don't know, maybe that probably wasn't the right word. What I mean by muted is grounded. It just seems not like it's creepy. It's a creepy show, but there's not a ton of like supernatural stuff going on. There's like, okay, there's like allusions to stuff. Like we could see Molly that she's an empath and she's kind of getting some signals, but we don't see like straight up visions. Um, like with the exception of the end of last week's episode, which where shit went crazy and a guy shot everybody. But all we're seeing is stuff out of the corner of our eye. We've seen like some kind of a ghost come up on Henry. We've heard creaking stuff, but we haven't, we've heard sound effects, but we haven't really seen anything. But I think it's a buildup. It's a quiet show. I mean, it's very haunting and quiet, and it doesn't have a lot of levity. It's very gray. People talk very softly. That's what I mean. Which can be good for building up tension, on which they're trying to do. And there were some legit parts there. I was like, okay, that was pretty good. I almost got creeped out. That's pretty good. Thanks, the Bazopolis. I appreciate it. He said, awesome review. Thanks. Hi, everyone from Australia. Just finished watching the episode. Totally disturbing and creepy. It's disturbing. And that's what they really needed to get in here because I don't know. I mean, like it's hard to creep me out. I don't get super creeped out, but it's possible. But if disturbed is good. Muted, like sort of methodical. It's a bit methodical, Bad Bunny, but it's got some decent twists. Like once I understood what the initial flashback was in the beginning of the show, I feel like that was actually good. I'm like, you kind of tricked me on that one. That was good. I like Molly. I like the kid. Does that make me crazy? No. Because it's pretty obvious that the kid isn't bad. Like it's he's a victim of circumstance. I want to see and now that we know that he's 60 something years old, that's interesting. I thought that was pretty interesting. That was a good payoff at the end there. I thought that was a decent payoff. My theory so far is the voice was the devil and the kid is the good guy. Ooh, that's a good theory. I like that. I want to see what's coming up. They've both seen the dad, Molly, and his son. Yeah. Disturbing is grown men playing with dolls. Well, I don't play with them often, Bad Bunny. Just once in a while. Is that disturbing? No, disturbing is like, watching somebody else sleep when you don't own the house. Stuff like that. Restraining orders, situations like that. Pretty soon they're going to figure out like this kid is, like no matter how nice he is, everywhere he goes, people start like shanking each other and, or like losing their girlfriends. I guess Pangborn actually got off pretty easy with that one. Okay. He could have gotten like, I don't know, freaking run over by a combine or something like that. Yeah, so it's a pretty decent show. We're going to continue covering it. Plus, there isn't a ton of shows to cover. So what we are covering right now is, we got our next show is going to be the Friday night podcast where we talk about anything and everything. It's 8 p.m. Pacific time. Please join us for that. We'd love to get you in the chat, and it's a lot of fun. We have a good chat. We have a good thing going here. So we would like you to join us. Then on the weekend, we have Preacher, Venture Brothers. We got Better Call Saul coming up. I don't think we're going to do Lodge 49 anymore. Kind of done with that. But yeah, we're definitely done with that. And there's some pretty cool shows coming up. I think we're going to at least look at the premiere of Jack Ryan that is going to be on Amazon, right? That's Amazon. Yeah. And whatever stuff comes out. It's still not TV season. So we get kind of experimental during the summer. But once the TV stuff starts kicking in, it'll be fun. It'll be fun. All right. I read comics and I'm over 40. What does that make me? It makes you smart. Smart, very smart. Comics is they're the best things. That's my favorite medium. Comics are the best. At least they were. I don't know how good they are now, but there's still some good stuff out there. Cosmic Ghost Rider. That was fun. Go read that. That's a good read. All right, everybody. I'm going to take off tonight. I really appreciate you guys staying up with me or being up in the middle of the day if you're in Australia, Tarka. Hope you have a good day. Hope everything's. Is it winter down there? Isn't it winter down there? Isn't it opposite? So I'm not going to ask you about the toilet flushing though. God, I'm sure you probably get tired of being asked about that. Yeah. So please check us next time, which will be Friday, or go back to our backlog and check out some of our old reviews. We have tons of them. I just did a video complaining about Star Trek a little bit, and I'm sure there'll be more of those. We're going to be doing more of the reaction videos and stuff too. Those are fun to do. Donkey balls, right? My theory is that all the bad stuff is either he is Cain from the Bible and carries with him the curse, or that the devil has framed him so that he cannot do what God sent him to do. Ooh, a frame job I've been framed by the devil. That's pretty good. Darth Jarvis, thank you very much. You have a good night. Everybody have a great night. Mary, Bad Bunny. Oh my God. Wait, who is the kid? Skarsgård. Okay, it's Cindy Lou. It's Cindy Lou. The kid is the Skarsgård. They haven't given him a name yet. So on IMDb, he's called the kid. And Tarka Jedi and random game user 42, Darth Jarvis. I'm going to say some names twice because I'm getting tired. Mako, Borpheus Maximus. The episodes drop on Wednesday on the East Coast, but those of us on the West Coast, when stuff drops on midnight, we get it at 9. So that's the only advantage of being on the West Coast when it comes to television. And all the other times we get kind of screwed, but because we usually don't count. But that's fine. We're cool because the West Coast is the best, baby. No, not really. All right, so I'll let y'all go. Have a great night, and who knows? I might come up with a stream tomorrow. You never know. May the small folks sing songs of your greatness. Ciao, everybody.